everyone, my name is Leanne Parker, and I want to thank you for joining us today on Your Elevated Space, where we talk all about how to transform our spaces to improve our lives in the areas of money, relationships, and overall well-being. Over the course of 21 days, my guests and I are here to show you how you can gain happiness and clarity through intentional art and design. And today I am so excited to introduce you to Elizabeth Enright Phillips, who is the author of Minimalism Room by Room. She is a successful financial coach and was recently featured by CNBC. And today she is here to talk all about minimalism and finances. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Leanne. I appreciate your invitation. I'm excited to talk with you today, and I'm so thankful to have this topic. I think it's fantastic and much needed.
I agree. So to start out, I have to point this out. So I was visiting your website recently, and it says something to the likes of you would have been voted as least likely to ever write a book on this topic. Can you explain what that even means?
Absolutely. So in my minimalist journey, I started decluttering with one concept. I just had this overwhelming impression or conviction, soul conviction really, that I needed to get my house in order. And I felt like I was just convicted from God that this had to happen, because I had a mess, a huge, enormous mess, because I had grown up in an environment that was tumultuous. I mean, pretty normal American childhood, I guess, with divorce and moving around. And so I saved everything, and I really tried to be very frugal and just save absolutely everything. Well, that created a lot of problems when you live in a smaller space. I lived in a 100-year-old duplex, and that we had bought and then rented out one side, lived in the other. So we're in a side-by-side duplex, which isn't a lot of square footage, about 1,200 square feet. And I couldn't safely walk in my back door. There were too many things that I was saving, too many projects, too much that I didn't know what to do with, and I was working in the corporate world. And so I say that laughingly, I was voted least likely to ever write a book on minimalism or get out of the basement sorting, but through a series of events, and I really just one foot in front of the other, we decided to give away over 2/3 of everything to charity. And that was about 560 some big 30-gallon bags or boxes, furniture to charity, just gone. So that's what it took for me. Now, not everybody needs to do that. Obviously, I needed a major intervention in my life. But the reason I love your topic so much is because it wasn't just about my physical surroundings. There was a lot of emotion tied to those things. There was a lot of history, a lot in my soul that I needed to give away. And probably the best thing I ever got rid of from all of those bags and boxes of very useful things that I donated to charity, the best thing I got rid of was a scarcity mindset and fear. And I think that's something, especially in the chaos that we see in our world today. And I want to be very sensitive to that, because obviously the news is filled with images and struggles, and there are a lot of people in our world that are hurting right now. And we want to be sensitive to that and definitely acknowledge that our hearts ache and our prayers are with those people that are hurting right now, because the concept of home and doing that deep soul work is something that I think is front and center, as well as financial concerns. That's front and center right now for a lot of people. So anyway, that's a little bit of my story. That's why I say I wasn't the poster child for minimalism. I definitely had a very messy journey to get here.
Well, I think that's great, because it just normalizes it really. And, to make a point that anyone who really wants to make a change in that regard can actually do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what would you say? I mean, you're also a coach, right? You work with clients on this sort of thing. So, what are the major reasons or turning points that people find themselves at that, allow them to say, okay, now I'm ready for a change?
Well, I think any number of life situations can necessitate a change. I think a lot of my clients are taking care of small children. They're maybe graduating children to college. So they're kind of entering that empty nester season, or they're taking care of aging parents, or all of it all at the same time. And a lot of my clients are trying to build a business on the side, maybe juggling a corporate job like I was, and just trying to find that financial stability as well as create a haven of mental bandwidth for themselves. That is so huge for so many of my clients, is to have that mental bandwidth to really focus on the things that are important to them. The concept of home, a family, and that bonding time without the pressure and weight of finances and clutter, I think is what really pushes a lot of my clients to really seek those answers and that help and guidance along the way. It was huge for me too. And I had my own coach. I highly recommend it. And having somebody that's a sounding board, someone to help with even the design side, is so vital in creating a sacred space, a quiet space, somewhere that you can think and really strategize and address the deeper issues of finances, of the soul. All of these things are so intertwined. So yes, I do work with clients, and yes, I've worked with clients all over the world, and different cultures obviously come to it at a different place, but everybody is a human being and we still have basic needs. And so that's a way that you can interact with your space, is to really think through, what do we need, just essentials as human beings.
I think it's so valid. So you're a mom of 6, right?
Yes, yes.
Which is absolutely incredible. I'm actually hoping that somebody walked in. I would love to meet one of your kids, of course. So we'll see if that happens.
They're adorable, but they know better. No, but we really do. We really live in a little log home in the woods. It's about 1,400 square feet, which is small for our area of the country. We live in the Midwest. And we do have 6 children. Their ages are 16 to 3.
Unreal, unreal. I also have a 3-year-old, but that's it. So I cannot imagine. That's a lot. That's a lot to handle, and a lot of stuff. So I mean, where do you even go about figuring out, what certainly we all know what a necessity is, but like, where do you really draw the line? Like, do you start small with your clients and then eventually just build from there? Or do you find that you focus on one area where, here's an area in your home that will make the greatest impact, and let's start there? Like, how does that work really?
Sure, and it varies, but there is a pattern and a system to it, and I do talk about that in my book a little bit, because everybody needs a place to start. And I've done this multiple times. So my husband is a real estate investor, and I do the design side of our real estate. We specialize in historic homes. And so we are faced with this exact question. Many times we deal with hoarder situations that way. And then we also I work with the clients and helping them design their spaces in their home. So there's always that moment of overwhelm where you're like, okay, I know there's a change that needs to be done. Where do we even start? So with my clients, we take that deep breath and we talk about what is most important. What do you really want to do with your space? And so it's different for each of my clients. I had one client who said, I really would just want to bake with my toddler and not be so exhausted and have the kitchen absolutely trashed. So we start with what's important to that person and start at that process in that space. So whether it's the kitchen, if by chance, and this does happen where people say, oh my goodness, I don't even know what I want or where to start. Dear God, please just help me. And that's when we start at the entryway door. So I even still do this to this day. We declutter, not all the time, but frequently throughout. Like you said, you have 6 kids, they drag in rocks, sticks, leaves, all sorts of things from outside, and everything is important to them. A piece of string has a deep emotional connection for them. And so we frequently have to start at the back door and work our way through the house and say, this, you can keep this if you want. Do we want to keep it? Do we want to share it? Do we want to recycle it? Because we want to be, you know, sustainable, and we really work towards zero waste in our house as well. Again, that's a work in progress, but we start at the back door or the entryway door, whatever door the family frequently uses, and make it easy to come and go, because I think a lot of times there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of hurriness. There's a lot of appointments or trying to deal with things, and coming and going can be a really stressful thing for families or for couples or for singles that are trying to just find their keys. So that's what we start with. And I always laugh that I wanted to be able to find my purse and have money in it. That was like my goal. I wanted to find it and have money in it. And I never realized that I needed to be consistent. I needed that system. I needed to have a place for everything, which is so cliche, but it's a lot easier said than done. Let's just be real. Some of us have a little more struggle in finding a home for things. So, and also a struggle in the financial side of things. So that's really where I start with my clients, is really talking about what's your priority, where should we start? And then also taking that burden of guilt. I think a lot of women carry this burden that I should have had this figured out by now. At least I did. Like, I have a high degree. I excelled in, you know, my college. I taught at a business college. I was moving up in the corporate world. And then I stayed home with my children with medical issues. And I came home, looked around and said, I have no idea what to do here. They didn't teach me this in any of my corporate, you know, education, all of my accolades. None of that mattered anymore. And so a lot of very highly successful women look at their spaces and say, I should know this, but I don't. And so we have to get through that guilt and just forgive and release and let go of that and choose to be positive and say, okay, I have success in other spaces. I can bring that skill set and the best of who I am to my home and create this for those that I love. And so that's one of the places that we start, is the physical starting spot, but also the emotional starting spot of addressing the home and simplicity in the home, simplicity in the finances. Because again, we're not taught about finances. I taught at a business college and I still didn't have the education and the tools that I needed. So I had to find that on my own. And a lot of women feel that kind of sense of loss or discouragement because they haven't been taught those things, or they feel like they should have known it, but they didn't. And we just really need to release that and really start where we are and let go of the past.
Absolutely. So do you find that when you're working with clients, or even in your own experience, you know, is there sort of a cadence to, you know, when you're minimizing, and then also on the flip side, you know, goal setting, financial goal setting, and then, you know, achieving, you know, on the other end of things?
Absolutely. That's what I found. So as I started working with finances with women in their business or their corporate positions, and realized very quickly that we could solve and teach those financial foundations, you know, principles and applications and systems. We could set all of that up. But if the home and the household budget wasn't in alignment with what their values were and all of the progress they were making here, if this wasn't in alignment, then this didn't matter. You know, we could set up all of these great financial systems. We could get them feeling confident in their money and directing that. But if the home was still a disaster and they couldn't find their keys or their purse, then nothing else mattered. It wasn't congruent. So that's when I integrated my minimalism with my financial coaching and with everything I did in business, because I had to help them find a way to bring authenticity to both their financial household and their actual physical household. And so being able to choose wisely how to allocate spending, what do we purchase? How do we make those prioritizing decisions? How do we stay in unity with a spouse, partner, adult children, aging parents again? You know, how does that work in a very busy household. And we've had that opportunity in this season for a lot of people to slow down and reevaluate, to think through the decisions and the choices. But I teach a lot on financial self-care, because having that slowing down to take time to meditate, to pray, to think through, okay, what decisions do I need to make in the finances, in the household? And just having that deep breath, I think, is the beginning of financial self-care. And that's what I talk about in the article with CNBC. And I talk about it a ton in our Frugal Money Smart Minimalist Facebook group. It's where money and minimalism meet, because that's where we have to start in having that quiet space to really address the issues. And it doesn't have to be long. It can be, I recommend to my clients, just 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes in the morning. You know, for me personally, for my morning routine, I get up, I do yoga, I do my stretches, and drink lots of water, lemon water, you know, all the good things that we're supposed to do. I try and do that every day. It doesn't always happen. And we are work in progress. We're not perfection, but we work towards this. And then, you know, I have positive affirmations. I read and I pray. And then having that foundation, I can look at the finances. I'll check through, you know, the bank accounts and the tracking. Tracking is the key to get you where you want to be. I always tell my clients that. It's a silly little rhyme I teach my kids, but I also teach my clients that as you're tracking it, and a lot of times there's some emotion there, looking at the finances, and maybe with everything that's transpired with the pandemic, it's really hard to even log in to look at what's happening. And so I really encourage my clients, have uplifting music, have positive affirmations that are playing in the background. I still do this to this day. It's just part of good financial stewardship to have a positive outlook and to say, okay, this is an area that's a challenge. How can we overcome this challenge? What are some of the possibilities? Not saying, I teach my clients, don't say, I can't afford it. We say, how can I afford it? How can I allocate my resources wisely? Because there's so much wealth in hidden places. And that's what I found when we were totally decluttering. I knew we didn't have the money to buy that item again if I donated it, because we were totally broke. I had left my corporate job, lots of medical things with my children, and I knew that we couldn't replace that item, whatever it was, if I gave it away. And a lot of my clients kind of have that as a sticking point. And I say, listen, this is a world of abundance. We live in God's economy is totally different than what we sometimes feel or see, that there is an abundance, and there doesn't have to be this competitive type of edge. Well, I have to get ahead. No, we have what we need, and if we just open our eyes to see it. And there's so much generosity and goodness in the world. So I think having that financial self-care is starting first thing in the morning with that positive outlook, that abundance mindset, and having positive music, logging in, learning how your finances are flowing. There's got to be a good flow to it, and knowing what's coming in and out of your door. So what are you bringing in? And what are you sending out as far as trash, or what are you donating? So understanding that we are the keepers and the stewards of our spaces, and we're in charge of both the money and the household. So we are empowered to make good decisions when we take that time to just 5 to 10 minutes first thing in the morning to just think strategically about what is authentic to us. What are our values? What are our morals? What should we do with the resources that we have, and then go from there.
Absolutely. We can't ever know where we're going unless we're able to measure what's happening day to day. That's so true. So I'm curious, I mean, I'm sure you have a ton of success stories, but can you share with us a client success story? Is that okay?
Absolutely. So I have quite a few wonderful stories that just really, it's my favorite part of what I do is to see that transformation. So I had a client who actually was in California. She moved across country here to the Midwest, and she came out of an abusive relationship, and she's given me permission to share because she wants to encourage other women. And she came out of a terribly horrific abusive relationship and moved across country, got safe, got with family, and she needed to get back in alignment with who she was, both financially and in her own space. She needed to feel safe, and she needed a simple, calm environment. So she took a job here in the Midwest, and it was a 90-minute commute one way. And so when she came to me, we started working on both her finances, and she bought, I walked her through, because of our work in real estate, she wanted to buy a fixer-upper. So she did an amazing job. She negotiated the price of a fixer-upper. We talked and walked through that process. So she bought it under the tax appraised value, got a great deal on it, and started this crazy 90-minute commute and totally transformed her space. She started with just one simple area that she could come home and relax. And she made those good financial decisions with that fixer-upper so that she was able to leave that job and work from home and get her finances in order and rebuild her life. And when I asked her, about her journey, she said, how many people have an opportunity like I do to start over and to restart my life? And she had such a positive outlook about everything she had been through. And she said, I really want the simple things. I really want to be a good steward of the time and my life and our earth. And so she just had an amazing story of how she was able to walk away from just a ton of negativity, start over, and really craft her life how she wanted it to be. And so that's one of my favorite client stories, just because of her incredible positive outlook at what was a really negative situation. And then I have another client who very successful gal, and she was high level of education, higher than mine, very accomplished. And she said to me as we were sitting down talking, no one's ever taught me how to handle finances. And she said, I have been afraid to even open my mail. And so we worked together in her space and her finances, and she is accomplishing more than she ever has before. And she was able to go through her finances and to eliminate with her student loans, with a student loan forgiveness program. Because of her work in the community, she was able to get $102,000 forgiven from her student loans. Whereas before, she wouldn't even open the mail to even find what it was or be organized enough to, do the documentation. And here she's able to serve her clients even more from a space of abundance, because she has walked through that process and has that confidence now to pursue her dreams and to be in a financial place to do that. So I just absolutely love empowering women, especially in the area of finances and simplicity in the home, because it literally is a physical transformation. Because I've had clients call me and say, as they're working through how much debt, what do they owe? I've had clients call me and say, I'm going to be physically ill. Like, I can't even believe I've never added this up. I've never organized my office enough to pull all the bills together. I think I'm going to be sick. And I'm like, okay, deep breaths, this is okay to really face that reality and then say, okay, we can work through solutions from there, and to be positive oriented and push that energy forward into solutions. So those are just a couple client stories, and they have all given me permission to share those stories because they do want others to find that financial healing that is possible, because it really is a wounded place. I think, at least for me, it was when we were totally broke, and for my clients as well, that it's very much an emotional woundedness that really comes out in our spaces as well as our hearts. So that's why I love your topic of elevated spaces, because it's not just a pretty, although beauty is important, it's not just a pretty space, it's a space that's a healing space that's important.
I completely agree. So do you have any advice on how people can, let's say people do want to embark on a renovation, or, plan for a project, or, purchase a investment property, let's say, how do you even go about starting?
That's a great, great question. And really, I think that it starts with being educated and setting aside some time to really focus on what it is that you want to do, whether you're doing like a live-in flip, or you just want to renovate your own house just for your own purposes, or if you want to purchase like a rental property or an Airbnb, something like that. We are buy and hold investors. You know, my husband does the buy and hold for upscale kind of historic homes. And so when you look at what do you want to do with your space and you sit down with your budget, obviously you want to keep things simple. That's the minimalist side. Just don't try and do anything crazy complicated, but write out what is it that you're looking for? What do you want to accomplish with this project? And be able to start reading. Like, the library is free. That's the cheapest, easiest, quickest place. And they're starting to open up again, at least in our area, to read. If you're looking to do any type of investment property, obviously you want to look online. One of our great resources we always love is called biggerpockets.com. There's several books that are fantastic from their publishing line, and to really read through what it costs for a renovation. You absolutely need to have a budget before you hire a contractor, and the contractor needs to know the budget and just know that they will never stick to the budget. Okay, they just won't. Like, it just always happens that way. Well, because there's always something unforeseen. So as you're allocating your resources wisely, make sure it doesn't become while we're here, we might as well do this, because it can quickly snowball into a whole house renovation when it was just the guest bathroom. You know, this is how it goes. And we've done this. We're in the middle of a rehab right now. We purchased a drug house, a hoarder house and a drug house, and renovating that is always an adventure. There's always something else that you didn't anticipate. So budgeting for that, planning it out, sketch it out on graph paper, walk through the area, get quotes and opinions, and get a team of experts together. If you're just doing your home, then obviously you want to have a licensed contractor give you some estimates, get some ideas of what you're working with. If you're purchasing an investment property, you need to talk to the people involved with that, and not just a realtor. You need to know people that are in that space who are doing what you want to do, whether that's buy and hold or Airbnb or whatever. And you can do that through online, you can do it through local networking, but really plan your space, plan your budget, and then always have an emergency fund, because every single project, there's always an adventure, and that's the fun of it. Really look at it as fun. I struggle with that, because I'm like, oh, broken pipes are not fun. You know, when you're designing a space and you have water damage, that's really kind of a damper on things, you know. It doesn't always jive with what I wanted. But when you look at it and you say, that's okay, we built in 15%, I say at least 15% to any project you do, because prices are going to fluctuate right now, and you need to have that built in. And definitely, it's not unforeseen that you're going to need some extra help. And especially on the other end of designing it, I have friends in the design world. Obviously, I love your aesthetic. It is worth the money to pay a designer. Absolutely worth the money to do it. So if you love design and you have a background in it, go for it. But if you don't, pay for it, and be very, very intentional about that. Set that aside in the budget, because the last thing you want to do is finish your project and hate the design. That's a horrible feeling. You are definitely going to want to budget for that final polishing piece of having a designer come in and help you.
So great. So great. I just love what you're doing for people to help them to live more simply, and just obviously that eliminates so much stress, and just taking control over their finances, because that's the biggest thing. I feel like so many people have just such a fear around money, and it's such a huge component of, fights in the household, and just overall just not feeling good inside, and, feeling out of control, really. So I just love what you're doing. And honestly, the first time you and I spoke, I feel like we were both in tears. I don't know. I feel like it was just so emotional. And so I know that you're so heart-centered, and I just love that about you. And I just want to, share with everyone where they can find you, because you do have a pretty big Facebook following, right? A
We
community.
we do. I'm the admin for 102,000 people in our frugal, money smart minimalist group. And so you can find me there. And I have a all volunteer team that we run that group, and tons of resources there. Also on my blog, it's createminimalism.com. And I've got resources on there. And I'm actually going to do a giveaway with the publisher that had recruited me to write the book. So this is Minimalism Room by Room. And we can do physical or digital copies, whatever people are comfortable with right now in the season. We can do either one is fine. And to be able to share that knowledge is just a joy for me. I just absolutely love it. So any of those places you can find me, any of those ways, I'm happy to chat.
I love it. So we're going to be sharing that information. That's actually in the email announcing Elizabeth for today, and then also in the Facebook group. So you all can enter there if you're interested in getting a copy. I personally would love a copy too, so I need to get back on Amazon and do that. And I hope you all enjoyed this discussion, because, I know it's just such an important topic, and, it is certainly a sensitive time for people. Everyone's at different stages, and sometimes people will go through tough times at a different time than others. And, we just all really need to be sensitive to each other, and really just, encourage each other to take control of our lives, because we really, really can. It is very possible. So everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate your kindness and having me on. And I just love all the work that you've done and put into this.
Thank you. You're so sweet. So everyone go join Elizabeth's community. And for now, I'll invite you all to take time and jot down the top 2 or 3 notes that you want to make on this conversation, and the first step that you can take to really make a difference in your home and your life today. And be sure to join us tomorrow for our next expert discussion. And I will look forward to seeing you then.